Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Definitely a video that I was not expecting to make today. It is very early in the morning. There are lawnmowers going on outside, so hopefully you guys don't notice that too much. But the important news is today we got a brand new weapon tuning update in Warzone, and it is the big weapon tuning update that we've been talking about for quite some time now. Things are going to be very spicy from this day moving forward because Raven has ended up nerfing things like the AMAX. They've adjusted the Fara, the Bullfrog, and some other weapons as well, alongside changing some other things in game too. So as we go through everything today, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. Let's go for 4,500 likes on today's video. And of course, if you're new to the channel or if you haven't already subscribed, I'm always covering everything going on in COD, news, intel, updates, you name it, it's all right here. So feel free to subscribe. That way you can always stay up to date. All right, so as you guys can see, we are here on the patch notes for Season 3, and basically this is just like one long thread now. They keep updating it. We've got the May 7th update, and right away, initially, the gameplay had some adjustments to it. The loot spawns across both Verdansk and Rebirth Island have been adjusted as follows. The Streetsweeper. The common variant was removed from the ground loot completely. The uncommon variant was removed from the ground loot completely. The rare variant removed from supply boxes, and the epic variant removed from supply boxes. AKA, the Streetsweeper is nowhere to be found. After today, you're not going to find that as ground loot or chest loot either on Verdansk or Rebirth Islands. Now, instead of the Streetsweeper, it looks like we're going to have the Howler because they added the common variant to the ground loot, the uncommon variant to ground loot. They also added the rare variant to the supply boxes. Obviously, the Streetsweeper was pretty obnoxious as ground loot, so that's no longer there. We're going to have the Howler instead. As far as bug fixes go, they fixed additional map locations in Verdansk that allowed players to reach out of bounds areas. This is on top of the locations that we addressed last week. So last week they fixed some of the map exploits. This week they have fixed, I believe, all the ones that we know about, whether it be over at the stadium or in downtown, wherever. No longer should you be able to get out of the map or under the map and actually take out players, which of course is a pretty big deal. They also fixed the bug causing player models to initially load in as low resolution at the start of a BR match. I'm sure if you've played any Warzone recently, you get like the Lara Croft character models right at the start during the infill. It looks ridiculously goofy. It seems like that's no longer going to be a thing. They also fixed a bug with the Cold War AK-47, the Fara 83, the XM4, and the RPD, where they were having their ADS move speed and firing move speeds decreased with the tactical and the SAS combat stocks rather than increased. So now, if you're using any of those stocks, it should actually move faster compared to slower like before. Now, when it comes to the weapon tuning, they gave us a whole spiel here that we're going to go ahead and break down. Then, of course, we have the actual weapon tuning as well. So they say, we would like to preface the following weapon changes by providing you with some insight on our thought process. There are millions of you, and when we reduce the effectiveness of a weapon, we are bound to make a change to someone's favorite gun. As players of this game ourselves, it pains us just as much. However, we remain torn. We are the custodians of this game. We make it for you. In the same light, we are charged with maintaining the health and integrity of the game. In some instances, this requires us to reduce the effectiveness of some universally cherished weapons, aka the Growl. I'm always going to miss it being ridiculously good. When we make a change like this, our intent is to promote diversity. Of course, we've talked about this in previous videos. We believe what makes our game truly engaging is choice. When we diminish that choice, we take away the agency to play the game your way. This can happen when a weapon becomes so effective that simply not utilizing it puts you at a disadvantage, aka the M16, the AUG, the FFAR. With that being said, we feel we are close to a balanced homeostasis where most options are at the very least viable, which leaves us to address the time to kill. The following balance changes are part of an ongoing efforts to raise the time to kill, or at least the individual skill required to reach extreme ones. We ask that you consider these changes not as targeted attacks, but rather as a larger initiative to raise the skill ceiling, which personally I'm a fan of. We want to give you the runway and the platform to show us your epic plays and your proudest moments. We hope that your journey of mastery brings you as much enjoyment as it does us, yada, yada, yada. So they give us a brief rundown of what is going to be adjusted here. Looks like an AMAX nerf, a Fara nerf, a shotgun nerf. Of course, we already know about the Streetsweeper. Bullfrog adjustments, neither good or bad, and then a PPSH buff. So for the rifles on the AMAX, the minimum damage was decreased from 32 to 31, so 1 damage decrease. They say with a great damage profile, locational multipliers, and manageable recoil, the AMAX was able to reliably reach extreme TTKs at long ranges. This change reduces its fastest minimum damage TTK by about 17%, in addition to its slowest minimum damage TTK by an additional shot. Its fastest minimum damage TTK, however, remains intact, which is a risk we feel is equal to the reward considering how unforgiving its rate of fire is and how many other weapons it has to contest with in the mid-range engagement space. The CR56 AMAX is just a tad bit more dominant than we would like it to be, and with this change, our aim is to widen the selection of viable long-range rifles. I'm curious to see how much this is going to impact the AMAX. 17% decrease in TTK seems decent enough. So hopefully the rifle category is going to be even more diverse. Now for the Fara, the headshot multiplier was decreased from 1.5 to 1.35, and the base ADS movement speed was decreased by 7%. So it's not going to be as good as like a secondary rifle now. You could probably still run it as a primary, but it's not going to be as effective either if you're hitting headshots with that slight decrease to the multiplier. For shotguns on the Streetsweeper, they actually made additional changes to this as well. The base hip spread was increased, so it's going to be a bit less accurate. The recoil was slightly increased, so it's going to be a bit harder to control. And the ADS speed was reduced slightly, so it's not going to be as fast to ADS either. So definitely, in my opinion, balances out the Streetsweeper if these changes are in fact accurate. For the SMGs on the Bullfrog, the maximum damage was decreased from 34 to 32. The maximum damage range was increased by 11%. The base move speed was increased by 1%, and the sprint out speed was increased by 13%. So a slight nerf to the damage, some other buffs though, so that's why it doesn't have like a green arrow or a down arrow. It's got some buffs, some adjustments made to pretty much honestly every category of it. So the Bullfrog, I wouldn't say is necessarily better or worse, it's just going to be slightly different. Of course, they say the Bullfrog's exceptional headshot multiplier has allowed it to reach one of the fastest TTKs in the game, which is true. While this change does not directly affect that multiplier, it does diminish its output. This change reduces the Bullfrog's ability to consistently achieve extreme TTKs while not removing it entirely. So in my opinion, they're just balancing it out, making it more in line with some of the other SMGs. Now on the PPSH, the maximum damage range was increased by 4% and the open bolt delay was decreased by 80%. The PPSH really wasn't that great, especially as a sub, so hopefully this is going to make it a bit more competitive. Looks like they also changed quite a few attachments here. For the barrels, the Combat Recon Sniper had its multiplier increased for bullet velocity by 12%, and the ADS idle sway multiplier was decreased by 33%. As we continue assessing the place of Cold War snipers within Warzone, we realize there is much to be done. In addition to improving the overall efficiency of these weapons and attachments, we'll also be taking a close look at their optics. This includes addressing attachment pros, where there are few, if any, use cases. In specific, we may see a Cold War equivalent to an immensely popular Modern Warfare sniper attachment very soon. For the optics also, the 3x optic on the AK-47 had its optic behavior improved. And then for the stocks, there was quite a few changes here. Raider and skeletal stocks on ARs, LMGs, shotguns, and snipers had their multiplier speed decreased by 75%, and their move speed decreased by 10%. The multipliers, I should specify, but that's a pretty drastic change. The Raider and skeletal stocks on SMGs had their firing multiplier decreased by 50%, and their base move speed on ADS by 10%. The Combat and Spetsnaz stock on ARs, LMGs, shotguns, and snipers had its firing speed multiplier decreased by 75% and its move speed by 10%. Again, pretty drastic. Combat and Spetsnaz on SMGs, same deal, decreased by 50% and 10%. The tactical stock on ARs, LMGs, shotgun, snipers, ADS move speed multiplier decreased 75%. The tactical stock SMGs, I don't know what that means, man. And then also ADS move speed multiplier decreased by 50%. So basically, mobility when ADSing and when shooting on Cold War weapons is now going to be drastically slower. It's definitely something that separated them from Modern Warfare weapons and made them so much more appealing. So that should be a pretty decent change there. That should be a pretty decent balance. Then they end these patch notes by saying, finally, we would like to address concerns that we are only going to be making changes to Cold War weapons. In the future, we fully intend on taking a closer look at some of the Modern Warfare weapons that have been struggling. So maybe we're finally going to see a Scar buff, a Bison buff, a Striker 45 buff, maybe something to the ISO. So many different Modern Warfare weapons could be really viable if they had like one maybe little push, you could say. So it seems like some changes there could be coming as well. Definitely some very, very exciting stuff. But as far as these notes go, there's a pretty big update for not being a title update. We got a lot of pretty significant changes. No more Streetsweeper. The AMAX is slightly worse than before. The Fara is slightly worse than before. This to me, like I've said in previous videos, I think is going to open up the meta quite a bit. You now have something like the AMAX viable, the Grau, the Kilo, the M13, the XM4, the AK-47, honestly from either game if you want to deal with the Modern Warfare 1's recoil. So many rifles are viable. Fara probably still is to a certain extent. Better SMG meta, MAC-10, both MP5s, the Bullfrog still probably. Plenty of options there, and of course I'm not naming every single one. PPSH might be better now too, and shotguns aren't going to be as big of a deal either, I'd say. Then just in general, when it comes to the movement speed and the firing speed for a bunch of different Cold War weapons, that's also now way different. So very productive update in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But that is going to wrap things up for today. If you enjoyed, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new here, if you haven't already subscribed, feel free to do so. That way you can stay up to date with everything going on in COD. Once again, and as always, thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.